Isack Hadjar. It seems that the premonition is beginning to come true. We got some reports coming out of, I believe, Autosport Spain, Spanish media. They feel like they know what's going to happen. They feel like they've got some good intel that Isack Hadjar is primed to join the Red Bull senior team in 2026 and beyond. Hadjar's performed incredibly well in the V-Carb this season, outperforming both drivers he's been alongside in the paddock, as well as the second Red Bull seat on the season. So starting off with this question, what does 2026 look like for Red Bull, Khaki Kev?
2026 for Red Bull looks like a lot of figuring things out, actually. A lot of figuring things out. You know, a new power unit, obviously the new regulations, all the things that will entail, a new teammate for Max Verstappen again. But this time a younger guy, much younger guy. So it will be a year for Red Bull to kind of figure things out. They may not I say they, not Max. They may not be as dominant as they once were in the past as they try to figure out what this new Ford partnership is going to look like. But I think for Red Bull, it's not the same old, so it has to be intriguing. It has to be interesting. It's going to be something to keep an eye on, especially as long as they keep Max around.
Yeah, there's a lot. I think there's a lot of different ways to look at 2026 for Red Bull. If you're a Red Bull fan, if you're a spectator, you're just genuinely curious. I think there's a lot to bite on here. I think the Max Verstappen drama is going to continue with the new partnership, the overhaul in the regulations. There's not going to be a lot of carryover from the current set of regulations. So anything that Red Bull did right en route to winning, 3 straight championships within this regulation, Max winning his 4th straight last year, it's going to be different. The entire car makeup is going to be different. There is no Adrian Newey. There is no Christian Horner. A lot of the technical staff during the success decided to pick up and go elsewhere.
This is a new Red Bull squad.
This is all completely new. Lauren Mekies is running the show here. So
yeah,
I think the Max drama continues in one respect because they're probably going to take a notable step back. I don't think that's a wild assumption to make. I would be shell-shocked if Red Bull walk out in 2026 in Australia, blitz the field, and are sitting on pole position. Now, Max is phenomenally talented, but with this new partnership between Red Bull and Ford, there is no Honda, backing the engines anymore. They're off to Aston Martin. They joined Adrian Newey, right? They fell into the Lance and Lawrence Stroll allure, so to speak. Red Bull are going to be on their own. This is 70% Red Bull, 30% Ford, if I'm not mistaken. But for the first time in Red Bull's history, they're going to be making their own powertrains. They're going to be behind the development of this car from beginning to end, but with a lot of new faces, a lot of new goals, a lot of new challenges in this regulation. I don't think it's going to be shocking to see them step back in any respect. Kevin?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of summarized it, though. But, I mean, I don't entirely agree as far as saying you would be shell-shocked. I wouldn't be. I mean, they're going to continue to have Max in there, and we've seen with the success from V-Carb that Lauren Mekies obviously knows what he's doing, and he's got a very good grasp of what he's doing under the Red Bull garage, especially and under that Red Bull name. Yes, new powertrain, new units, all those new things. There's a lot of newness to this whole organization for Red Bull. But to say you'd be shell-shocked, I don't entirely agree. It would be a little bit of a surprise to see Red Bull just back to dominance. It'd be kind of like,
this was over.
Yeah,
we thought we had buried you, and here you are back better than ever.
Yeah.
And is Max Verstappen dominance going to bore Formula One fans in 2026?
It shouldn't.
I hope not. I think I really would be surprised though. It's just because there's so much new.
I agree. I would be surprised, but I think that there's a gap in between being surprised and being shell shocked that I just don't necessarily agree with.
Do I think that Max being relatively successful is going to be surprising? Maybe not, but I'm not expecting Red Bull to be sitting on pole when it comes to the end of the first qualifying session in Australia. The fundamental makeup of the car is completely changing. It's not like there's DRS anymore. the way that these cars had to brake and maneuver throughout the circuit, much less just like going through simulations, actually driving on track, actually going through the motions, actually figuring out how the hell to drive these cars. It's going to be an incredibly new challenge. The way that the braking works, they're going to be maybe even mid-braking within certain corners because so much of the power unit relies on battery makeup. It seems like, according to the reports, Mercedes have really nailed this. They are considered to have the best ahead of time. Ferrari are, there's reports coming out that Ferrari are going very ambitious with their car direction for 2026. Very bold and ambitious as far as what they're trying to do with the concept. But
yeah, they need to.
I mean, maybe it just depends on, of course, like how strong the engine is, right? Again, Mercedes feel like they're good, but with Red Bull, there is just so much new here. There is a lot of newness from the top down. I just don't expect them to just hit the ground running and be right back where they were to start, like they did in 2022, walking into 2023. The greatest designer of all time has been putting all of his time and effort now, not towards a Red Bull. They've been putting it towards an Aston Martin. Adrian Newey is no longer in the building. Red Bull are facing a very interesting period. However, for Hadjar and the team, this car is going to be a fresh slate within this new regulation. I think maybe the graduation, at least for Hadjar, let's circle back here, right? The graduation of the senior team isn't going to be as daunting as it has been for Liam Lawson, as it has been for Yuki Tsunoda, as it became for Checo Perez towards the end, and a number of other Max's teammates. Not to say that he's going to walk in and dominate and beat Max Verstappen, but I think that starting with a car that solely isn't built to tailor towards Max, making it more drivable, making it a little bit more user-friendly, so to speak, I think Hadjar has a better chance. My question is, with everything going on in the background, with the speculation for Max, is this going to be the first step of it becoming maybe Isack Hadjar's team, right? If Max Verstappen is year to year considering other options, right? I believe the exit clause in Max's contract is no worse than fourth place in the constructors. So let's say Red Bull walk out, they're fifth, right? But they're fighting alongside maybe Aston Martin. Maybe they're fighting alongside Ferrari. Maybe they're fighting alongside McLaren. Maybe they're fighting alongside whoever, but they're just a little bit behind. I mean, exit clauses are exit clauses for a reason. That speculation begins to ramp up the same way it ramped up this year with him potentially going to Mercedes. That conversation being, when are they going to re-sign George Russell? Max Verstappen's waiting in the wings. Didn't work out. With that in mind, is Isack Hadjar potentially the future, Kevin?
Man, big hard-hitting questions my first week back. Not starting in 2026. And not even in 2020, not even in 2027. I think that Max has enough, dare I say, loyalty to here, let me break it down like this. Because even taking loyalty aside, Max has to do what's best for Max. We've both agreed there's really only one other team that makes sense for Max Verstappen, and that is, let's say it together, 1, 2, 3, Aston Martin. Okay, there's a little bit of a delay there. Anyway, so with that being said, Max might have to play the long game and wait for either them to can Lance Stroll. I don't know how.
I think signing Max Verstappen is just done. I don't think they have to do that first. I think if you sign Max Verstappen, the obvious is there.
I'm just saying he would either have to wait for that to happen or for Fernando to retire. Neither of those is probably going to happen within 26 or 27. Maybe in 28, because by the time 2028 rolls around, then now all these teams are established within the new regulations. We kind of have an idea of what that Ford powertrain is going to look like, what that partnership looks like. Maybe Max loves it. Maybe it revitalizes Max and he feels better than he did before. Maybe he absolutely hates it and he wants out immediately. I think that would be the telltale sign. But I don't think Max is going to go 1 year into this new deal, 1 year into this new these new regulations and be like, no, I want out. I think he would give it a little longer than that. And I think he'd give it more than 2 years.
I think I disagree, because we're going to walk into this reg and we're going to get an idea pretty quickly on where everybody stands. I don't think it's going to take him all of 2026 to realize, who the best teams are, what the best seat available is. If Aston Martin are that much closer to winning a championship than Red Bull, sorry, the loyalty lies in where can I get the most success? Where can I be the biggest? Where can I chase championships? And if Red Bull are falling further and further back, this is a complete overhaul, like I mentioned. The opportunity for Hadjar to really be the face of a very iconic brand, being the face of a championship level team as it develops around him, might be a better prospect for a younger driver than Max. Max, I mean, respectfully, he's 28. He's not, as old as Fernando Alonso, who, with all due respect, I don't necessarily think he's going to make it all the way to 2027, 2028. Like, that's going to be a year-to-year question.
I think but jumping in here, I think that's when Max will be able to sit there and say, okay, do I like what I've gotten from Red Bull so far, or is now the time to make that move?
I think that we'll know what Max's intentions are I think his contract exists through 2028. I think we're going to know pretty quickly, though, what his intentions are probably before the summer break next season. I think that he's just going to look around and see what's available. Obviously, Mercedes are looking to tie their guys down long-term. That doesn't seem like it's going to be a viable seat. McLaren obviously have their guys long-term. Ferrari have their guys long-term. So as far as those other big three teams, it's maybe not there, but Aston Martin are putting all the infrastructure in. They have all the money there. They have Adrian Newey there. They have the Honda power unit as well. I see there being a lot of positive reason for him to go. Now, it's on Red Bull to me to keep Max. And I know I started the segment asking or proposing that Isack Hadjar, again, going to Red Bull in 2026. I do want to kind of bring it back to this. For Isack Hadjar, yes, I still see this as a massive opportunity for him. Maybe he's looking for a championship level car too, but at the same time, for a young driver to really have a team develop and build around you and it be one of these major players on the grid, I don't necessarily expect Red Bull to be back at the pack. I would imagine VCARB would at least be that buffer, but I don't necessarily expect them to just jump off and surprise a bunch of people. I think Max maybe is good enough to pull a car that maybe is a midfield car, keep it competitive, maybe in the top 6 places. But over the course of a season, over the trend of a season, I think that it very well is going to start looking a lot more like maybe a Max leaves. This just leaves a huge opportunity open for Isack Hadjar to become the face for Red Bull.
All right,
go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, let's do this. Let's go ahead and, because we don't want to talk about Red Bull and Isack Hadjar for 45 minutes. So let's go ahead and do this, because I kind of have an idea of where you're leaning with this. And I don't agree entirely, which is okay. That it's okay to disagree, ladies and gentlemen, but I think that we should do this. 2026, Isack Hadjar, Max Verstappen lineup, Ford partnership. You expect Red Bull to place where in the constructors by the end of the year?
End of the season. Maybe this is me having more faith in Aston Martin, but I think that they're probably hugging about 5th place.
Okay.
That's the Red Bull senior team. I think VCARB are probably a few places back behind that. It's just because there's so much new. And with all due respect to Lauren Meckies, Lauren Meckies is touted as a much more technical guy. In having Hadjar there, I think that he could really put together a car around him that suits him well. And the technical team that is there, I think they could do a good job for Hadjar. I just don't know that this is going to be a car that is going to start off and surprise a bunch of people. This partnership has, I would argue, is relatively new. It's in the last few years that they announced this. They've had a couple of years to kind of get this developed and get going, but
yeah,
you're all on your own aspect of it. You don't have a Honda to go back to and say, hey, we need more power. We need this. We need that. You don't have a Mercedes to go call and pick up the phone and say, hey, we need this. They used to be with Renault. You can't pick up and do that. They're leaving the sport. This is all on you if you're Red Bull. I just think there's going to be a big learning curve. And especially given how many people have left, how many people are going to be new faces, and with how much newness there is even with this Ford partnership in 2026, yeah, I just expect them to take a step back. I think they're hugging for P5, maybe P4 if they're really ambitious. I don't think they're going to be I don't think they're going to be fighting at the very, very back, but I don't know. I just don't think it's going to get off to a great start. I think the Mercedes power unit, considering all of the conversation around it, I would expect McLaren to be in that mix. I would expect Mercedes to, of course, be in that mix. I think Williams and Aston Martin Williams are going to benefit greatly from it. Alpine are probably going to perform a little better than they have this year. Of course, they're dead last in the constructors. I imagine they get a bump just purely because they're going to be driving what is considered to be the best engine to start this next regulation. Everything else, of course, aerodynamics, driver, et cetera, that can make some of those differences, strategy. But, they're performance-wise, you're going to just see a bump from a few of those teams. As far as what this means for VCARB as well, because obviously losing Isack Hadjar affects this team. We've talked a lot about what the lineup is going to look like. I think you and I probably agree that it's going to be Max Hadjar and Red Bull. This is what, the news is kind of alluding to here. And then Liam Lawson and Arvid Lindblad are probably going to be that duo for VCARB. I feel like as Formula One fans, we're really just waiting for the official announcement for this lineup for 2026. The question about Yuki Tsunoda we've asked a lot. My assumption was that he was going to be going to Aston Martin, maybe playing a reserve role. Something did cross my timeline that I wanted to bring up that I thought was interesting as we close out this segment, that Yuki Tsunoda could very well have a home with Alpine. I hadn't really talked about it here, but I don't see there being a ton of obstacles there, at least not on first glance. He gets along incredibly well.
I agree.
He gets along incredibly well with Pierre Gasly. They have no consistency in the second driver. They're not a team that you're expecting a lot of right now. They can play around with a guy like Yuki, who brings a lot of really good marketing. He's good for social media. He's well liked by the fans. And you pair him up with a guy he's got a great working relationship with, at least in Pierre Gasly. It's a mess behind the scenes at Alpine, but if they could get the driver duo, at least stable, I think Yuki's at least a better option right now than Colapinto and certainly Jack Doohan.
You know what? I hadn't thought about that either, but I do like that. I enjoy that perspective because I could sit here and say I like Yuki Tsunoda's upside as a driver on the track, off the track, personality, team-wise, more than what you're getting from Franco Colapinto or Jack Doohan.
Yeah.
That's just me.
Agreed.
And if you agree, that's great. TLPs, let us know if you agree. I know that we haven't always sang Yuki Tsunoda's praises, but I think that could be a good fit for him, and that's definitely something to keep an eye on.
I would argue he's at least a much more stable driver than the other two. He's not going to put it in the wall as much as Franco Colapinto has. He may get you the some odd point here and there. There's a learning curve when it comes to infrastructure, but I don't see why that might not be the move. I don't see anybody else in the market right now that jumps out as like, you absolutely need to sign this guy. Valtteri Bottas and Checo Perez are Cadillac drivers beginning in 2026. If you're Alpine, I don't hate that as a potential swing.
I think anywhere else, he's probably a reserve driver.
Agreed.
Yeah. So I think if that opportunity came knocking, I think that would be a very interesting offer for him.
And with all the moves yet to be announced, how do you think Hadjar is going to fare TLPs? If he does make the jump to Red Bull, what is that going to look like? Where does Yuki land? Is Alpine like a realistic option? Just let us know down in the comments, guys. I want to know what you think. We're looking for that engagement. And if you say something interesting, we'll probably talk about it right here on the podcast. But we got to move forward. We spent a little bit longer on that segment than I think I was expecting.